I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself, introduce Dr. Marissa Canning, and we'll get right into it because I don't want to keep you folks waiting. So I'm Erin. I'm the host of Inspiring Insights, and I'm so happy that all of you have decided to join us tonight.
Yeah.
And I have been hosting this online education platform. This is episode 10, so it's been going on weekly for, the last 10 weeks, last couple months. And this is our vodcast. This is a space where we host amazing practitioners in our network, amazing wellness providers in our network, so that you can get to know them, for one, to feel inspired, and for two, to start your own wellness journey. And hopefully that's really what we inspire here tonight and going forward. And our hope is that we want to really inspire people to live more consciously and to help people run just as authentically as they do efficiently. And I know a lot of people run very efficiently these days, but how are we incorporating that authenticness, that genuineness into our everyday day-to-day? And I'm so happy to have Dr. Marissa Canning on tonight because she's amazing. And if any of you know her on a personal level, she definitely brings that authenticity to the table. And I'm so happy to have her here tonight. And of course, like I said, we have had a few more people hop on just since I started speaking. So just toggle down to the little chat bar, write a comment, tell us where you're from, where you're tuning in from, and what gets you so excited about sleep. I'm really excited to dive into this tonight.
Me too. Thanks for having me, Erin.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Marissa. So let's talk about Dr. Canning. For first of all, let me just introduce you because you have quite a background of knowledge behind you and a background of beautiful authenticness, as I said. So you're a naturopathic doctor. You are a Reiki practitioner. And of course, you're a nature lover. Dr. Marissa is actually the clinic director at Lakeside Naturopathic Clinic in Brampton. And she is the co-owner of an online educational platform as well called NaturoAcademy. So what I really like about Dr. Marissa is that she advocates, like I said, for self-empowerment, for really that alignment piece of health and ultimate vitality. And she strives to connect her patients and reconnect them with their own natural rhythms and cycles of the world around us. So, that we can all really feel our best by living in harmony with nature. And Dr. Marissa is very passionate about supporting her patients to become curious about their own health, their bodies, and ultimately their purpose. And that shift, I think, is really that's the shift in perspective that makes way for that ultimate growth and transformation. So, Dr. Marissa, while you're not in the clinic, you can be found exploring the nature trails with your partner and your pup, reading books on self-development. That's always good. And spending time connecting with friends and family, of course, virtually these days, if you can't see them face to face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Marissa, for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Erin. I'm excited to talk about all things sleep.
Oh my goodness. So let's dive right into it then.
All right. How
about we start with, why sleep is so important, and let's just leave it broad at that and see where we go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first, maybe how did you sleep last night, Erin?
I actually slept pretty well, except
Good.
I will admit that I probably didn't sleep enough hours. When I am tired, I do sleep, and I don't tend to wake up, but it's not always the quality. It's more about quantity for me.
Yeah. Well, it is about both, and hopefully we can get you there after you hear about some of the tips after tonight.
Would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, sleep is one of the most important things that you can do for your health, and it's often so overlooked. Sometimes when I ask patients, how do you sleep? How is your sleep? And they're like, oh, it's fine. It's just brush over it because it's fine. But really my goal here is to make it great. It shouldn't just be fine because it's so fundamental to our health that we really need it to be top notch. So, so we'll get into why sleep is so important. But as I speak, maybe everybody here today can go over and just write in the chat box how many hours you currently get for sleep and how many hours for sleep is optimal for you. We all know that number that, oh, if I just get 8 hours, like that's just where my body hums. But right now I'm only getting 6 or 7, you know, write in those 2 numbers in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. So sleep is so important. You know, humans spend about a third of our lives sleeping, and nearly every animal sleeps. So it's pretty essential. You know, the longest we can go without food is a few weeks, but the longest on record that somebody has gone without sleep is only 11 days. So really
only 11.
Yeah. Or sorry, 11 days. I mean, realistically, it's that important that, you know, you need it to survive. So the only 2 things that are more important is oxygen and water. So it's quite important. And it's actually where we rest, recover, and repair physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So,
I love that.
Yeah. So when we're awake, that's where we're constantly putting stressors on our body through exercise, digestion, cognitive demand, psychological stressors. So these are all very yang activities, and they must be balanced with the yin of sleep that comes at the end of the day.
Okay. Can I stop you there for a second? Can you say more about what a yang activity is, just in case?
Yeah. So yang is daytime, you know, it's the outward expression of ourselves. And yin is an inward, turning inward, and considered nighttime. You know, there's not as much of a movement or a go, go, go. In today's society, we have a lot of go, 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 you know, and we push that yang time into the yin time of the day. And that's where we have problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so that's, from the traditional Chinese medicine kind of perspective, right? That whole kind of like balance, that circle, the yin and the yang are together, but they're always flowing back and forth.
Exactly. They're so interconnected. They're two parts of one whole. And you can see that, you know, they are flowing into each other. But when you look at it, there is even a little bit of yang in the yin and a little bit of yin in the yang. You know, you really do need a good balance of both. But when you're doing one, you can still have, you know, during the day, you can still have moments of silence, moments of yin. You know, and you'll find the same too for some people in the night. And even depending on the moon cycle, you know, you might wake up in the middle of the night and you have a little bit of yang in the middle of the night. And on occasion, that is normal.
Okay. I want to pick your brain about that maybe in a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
the moon cycle sounds fun.
Yeah.
So what is sleep so important for in terms of like that repair, recovery kind of aspect? Because just me coming from like an athletic background, you know, we talk about rest so much, but we didn't really talk about sleep or sleep quality or the optimal amount of sleep or what that looks like. We didn't talk about the stages of sleep, the timing of sleep. You know, I find that that's not really something that a lot of people go into more detail with. So let's do that. Why don't we?
I mean, it's so overlooked, especially in athletics, because, you know, they do a study, you know, like there's a quote, you know, practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice plus sleep makes perfect, because, you know, no matter how much your you know, whether that's mental cognitive demand, like studying for an exam or doing physical activity, you need that rest. Physiologically, our body literally needs to rest and repair in order to do better. And those who get a good night's sleep actually do 20 to 30% better in athletic performance than those who are sleep deprived. So, you know, it should be talked about in the athletic field, as well as, you know, in every single school for kids and in the office. You know, it leads to increased productivity, deeper work at school or at work. It's a no-brainer to get a good night's sleep. It
sounds like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You put it that way, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just looking at here on the comments, there's a lot of people saying, you know, they get 7 hours, 6 hours, currently get 8 hours. But optimally, they know that at least 8 is their optimal. Some people have 9, 8.5, 8 hours, life with a baby. I get it, Braylon.
Yeah.
7 for a good evening. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what can you speak to that? Maybe the optimal amount?
Yeah. So you can see that there's a discrepancy in, you know, the amount that you're getting and the amount that you know is optimal for you. And hopefully some of these tips can get you to that optimal range. But the reason why typically, I mean, between 7.5 to 9 hours is optimal is when we go into those sleep cycles, like the how sleep works aspect of things. And so we have different sleep cycles. And each cycle, so there's about 5 different stages of sleep, and each stage of sleep is vitally important. And each stage of sleep happens in one sleep cycle. And we need, that sleep cycle lasts about 90 minutes, and we need about 5 to 6 cycles per night in order to feel our best. So that equates to 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep. But you need to factor in both quantity and quality.
Right.
Just because you lay there unconscious for 8 hours doesn't mean that you got like the best sleep. You're not going to wake up feeling refreshed,
I think we all know that from anyone who drinks alcohol and just passes out for 12 hours and then wakes up and still feels like they haven't slept.
Absolutely. And alcohol and marijuana, they both reduce REM sleep. And REM sleep is vitally important to our psychological repairment and our repair. So our memory consolidation.
Okay, so let's reiterate that. So 90 minutes, that's one sleep cycle.
Yeah.
Around 90. Okay, and that's pretty standard for everybody across the board?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And then so we need 5 of those at least?
5 to 6. Yeah, it depends on the person. 5 to 6.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I see that. I'm already like, okay, wow, I probably haven't gotten that much.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people do constantly live in this sleep deprivation. And I think that's why we also see people saying like, yeah, my sleep is fine. Because they don't even know that they're in a sleep deprivation.
Yeah. I mean, you really, that's the thing. It's like, you don't know until you see differently or feel differently.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, until you start to feel good, and then you will not accept anything less. Like you'll have one off night on a weekend and it's like, oh, this is unacceptable.
Okay. And that speaks to the self-empowerment piece, I think, which we'll get into a little bit later. But that in itself, what you said, you said until you really don't allow yourself to do that anymore. It's that drawing your boundaries, setting up success for yourself. And that's something that's so huge. And what I think naturopathic doctors really, really are blessed with to give their patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to know, what you deserve as well. And, sometimes people just 6 hours because they're taking care of other people or doing work late or whatever, and not actually spending that time in their yin state, that state of quiet and darkness, and really doing that self-care in the evenings like we should.
And is there any more about really the stages of the sleep that we would like to share? I know you mentioned the REM part, which is really important, but any other stages?
Yeah, I can go into them. So basically when you're between being awake and being asleep, there's like an awake, like middle stage. So that's where your heart rate and your breathing starts to slow down. Your body and your muscles really start to relax. And then you move into a light sleep. And this is where your breathing and your heart rate slows down a little bit more, and your body temperature starts to drop as well, to get a little bit colder. And this is where you have a lot of cellular regeneration. And then you move into deep sleep, and deep sleep is like the gold of sleep. It's the most regenerative. So this is where you have the muscle and tissue repair and cellular regeneration. And this is where you are, your heart rate and your breathing rate is the slowest. And then you move into REM sleep. And this is where you actually have increased brain activity. This is where we dream. So what's interesting is that, it changes throughout the night. So it's not just boom, 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 cycle, cycle, cycle. It's the REM sleep is actually shorter at the beginning of our sleep. And as we get to the end of our sleep cycles, they go longer and longer and longer. So what's cool is that when you look at the sleep timing, so from 10 to 2, that's where you have your most physical recovery, because that's where you have the most deep sleep. And then from 2 to 6, that's where you have the most psychological recovery, because that's where we have the most REM sleep. So if you miss any of those stages, it's really hard to catch up.
Right. So are you saying that if I go to bed at 2 a.m., I would only kind of regenerate physically? And then, if I get up at 6 or 7, I would miss that emotional part?
A little bit, but it's more about, so the 10 to 2, that's the physical. So if you go to bed at 2 o'clock, then you miss out on a lot of deep sleep. So yes, you miss out on the physical recovery.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But if you just go to bed at 2 o'clock, it's not like you're getting straight REM, because the REM kind of has to like amp up.
Right. Okay. Still. Yep. Got it.
Yeah.
So in general terms, because of, the way that the sun and the moon move across the sky, and the way that the world is turning, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., is a good time to like go to sleep? I mean, it's obviously better to go to sleep earlier to get that full physical and then the full mental.
Yeah. So 10 p.m. is what you're really striving for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, interesting.
Cool, eh?
And do you know, just because it's like around the time that our clocks have just changed, how does that factor in?
Yeah, so it's really cool research there. So basically, if we'll talk about the springtime change, because that's where we actually lose an hour. So that's where we really realize like how vitally important our sleep is, because incidence of heart attacks go up by 24% the following day after the spring time change, losing 1 hour of sleep. Globally, there's an increase in heart attacks by 24% and an increase in stroke by 8%.
What?
Yeah, so that's just like goes to show how important sleep is for our health. And you can even see it in your own health too. Like if you spend Monday to Friday, you know, having your sleep schedule because of your work schedule, you know, you go to bed at a certain time, wake up at a certain time, and then the weekend comes and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to bed late. I'm going to wake up later, and you throw off your sleep schedule. You can feel that on Monday. You know, it gives you like a social jet lag that gives you like a full case of the Mondays that you're like, you feel it. And when you have a sleep deprivation, you actually eat more, 200 to 300 more calories in a day, because you're deprived of energy and you're reaching for calories to give you that energy, and you're not reaching for anything, you know, I mean, typically not reaching for healthy things. You're reaching for those quick sugars that are just going to give you a hit.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. Okay, so yeah, when you have less sleep, you're just stress eating, you're stress everything else.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good point. I would love to know from the audience, you know, wow, we've already talked about like 100 things in like the last, and it's only been 20 minutes. I feel like this is like totally jam packed, Dr. Marissa. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
From everyone listening, you know, what is your biggest takeaway so far? What has been your wow moment? I just had one really publicly, you know, oh my God, 24% heart attack on the springtime change. Yeah. That is wild. But I'm interested to know, for everyone else listening, what is your kind of aha moment? And as people kind of like write about that in the comments, you and I can kind of keep going with the chat, Dr. Marissa, if that's cool.
Yeah, of course.
Great. So let's talk about. And someone did just write a question, and I have something to say about the questions. So I'm just going to mark them as questions. We're going to take time after for questions and answer period. So don't worry about not being answered, because we will answer it later. We just don't want to kind of interrupt the flow right now. So I guess, yeah, speaking of more of like how the world turns and everything else, can you speak to the circadian rhythm and really how that controls humans in general?
Yeah. So the circadian rhythm is what our biology runs on. It's like an internal clock that controls physiological function in all living beings. So it's commonly referred to as like the sleep-wake cycle, but it does so much more than that. It really tells your cells what to do and when to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's two main hormones involved.
Yeah. Okay, great. That was my next question.
Okay. Yeah. So two main hormones would be cortisol and melatonin. So the cortisol, I mean, it kind of gets a bad rep in society these days because it is considered the stress hormone, but it's actually essential for daytime activity. So it peaks in the morning, and it starts rising in the morning. It peaks midday, and then it slowly goes down. And as it's going down, your melatonin should be rising. And when it's not, this is where we see problems, you know, when it's not dipping, because cortisol is a stress hormone. So when we're adding stress later in the evening and we're keeping that cortisol high, we can't actually release adequate melatonin. So melatonin is our sleep hormone, our yin hormone, and it's essential not just for sleep, because it's one of the body's strongest antioxidants and anti-inflammatory hormones. So we really need it for overall health. So this is about so much more than just getting enough sleep. When you release enough melatonin, your overall health is just is benefited as well.
Yes. Okay. I see that. And so melatonin naturally is, I guess, produced by our body, you know, as the sun starts to go down. Is that right?
Yes. So
kind of thing.
it's actually produced in the morning. So one of the tips that I'm going to give today for best sleep is when to watch the sunrise in the morning. That's when it's produced.
Melatonin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Produced in the morning.
Amazing.
Released at night.
Oh,
So
got you.
So much more than an evening, just like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my sleep in the evening. It's like you have to focus on it really all day in order to get adequate melatonin production and release. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. And I guess that kind of is a good segue to what I wanted to ask you next. And that's kind of more about how, and I think maybe that's what everyone is here for as well, how to really optimize our sleep. Okay. So there are so many different ways. And just even on my Instagram stories, I've been posting about like what EMF's impact is on your sleep and like how the timing of your food really impacts your sleep habits and your sleep quality. So I guess maybe start from there, from the sun exposure that we just talked about with melatonin and sunrise, or if there's anything else in that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a lot of ways to optimize sleep. So what I want to urge everybody watching to do is just take out a paper and pen and, jot these things down, but don't get overwhelmed because, there is so many things. And sometimes when we try and do everything, you end up doing nothing. So write them all down, but then choose three that really motivate you, that really think like, wow, yes, I can start to do this today. And I can really start to feel an impact on my sleep. And then once those are down pat, then you can move on and do a few more. But I really find like 3 is like the magic number, just for everyone watching to like really see some effectiveness from it. Yeah. Not get analysis paralysis, I like to call.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start in the morning. So sometimes we wake up and it's before the sun even rises. So you need to know that this is still a yin time. So it's transitioning into yang, but it's not the time to, turn on a screen, or to do anything that's very yang. Oftentimes we just either turn to our phone and scroll in bed for a very long time, turn on like TV, even worse, the news. It's just not the best way to start the day. And it really, it gives off a stress response before the sun is up. So this is where, our cortisol should be slowly rising. But if you just expose yourself to blue light right away before the sun even rises, then it's just like a huge shock, a huge stress to the body. So then we move into the sunrise, and this is where, the sunrise and the sunset have the most healing, beneficial rays. It's one of like the most powerful things that you can do for your health too, because it's where your melatonin is produced. And really all you do is you go outside during the sunrise and you situate yourself in an area that you can get some direct sun exposure, ideally without any glasses on. So the rays can come right into your retina, and as much skin coverage as possible, so that the sun can hit your skin, because our skin does have light receptors too.
Just like the plants.
Yes. We are nature. We often forget. We try and remove ourselves from nature, live in a concrete jungle, but we are part of nature. And I think that's why there's so much dysfunction in today's society with so many people's health, is because we're living so off kilter with the natural rhythms of nature.
And yeah, I can speak to that sunrise piece. It's so nice. My day feels so much better when I get to see the sunrise, even if it's through my kitchen window, just like looking through it, it makes a huge difference. And I'm sure everybody has felt that too, when you're up and on the way to the airport or something to catch a flight or whatever. It's so nice to watch the sunrise.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's powerful.
So what other ways can we optimize our sleep besides, getting up at sunrise? Because that's not available to everybody.
Honestly, yeah. Right now, it's like it's rising at a good time, but in the middle of the summer, sometimes it's 5:30. It's like it's so early. So yeah. Right. The sunset's also great. But let's move on to another thing that we can do. We'll move on to like more of the daytime tips, and that would be to get enough movement. So this is going back to that yin and yang principle. Movement is very yang. And it actually does, it's considered stressful in the body, but it's a good stress, but it still does release cortisol. So that you really need to get your movement in during the day and not be exercising at night. especially after the sun goes down. And I say after the sun goes down, and you just have to consider that this is going to change throughout the year. So there's no like black and white, like do this end, do this end, do this end. We really want to like, this is the part of the empowerment part, is that looking at what nature is doing and mimicking as much as possible. So getting out your yang in the form of movement will be really beneficial for you when it comes time to be yin. You'll be so much more ready to be in that yin because you've let off all that yang.
I see. So when is like the most maybe optimal time to like exercise or like do large movements or go for a run or something?
Yeah, I would just say it when the sun is at its highest. Or I mean, I really don't want to say that it's one specific time. Just trying not to catch any of those yin times, but I'm sure it'd be when the sun is at its highest.
Okay, got you.
Yeah,
and I feel that way too because I used to play hockey and we used to have games really late at night, like 10, 11 p.m., 12 at like midnight sometimes. And I would be so wired for like 3 hours afterwards.
Yeah, like how are you supposed to sleep? It's crazy.
Exactly. And to that end, Marissa, I would also, have a coffee at like 8 because I knew that I would have a game at midnight, right? So I had to like kind of staying awake. So let's talk a little bit about caffeine and how that really impacts us, because that's like the, I don't want to say silent killer, but it's, that one thing that's almost like everybody has that love-hate relationship with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, caffeine is one of those things that if you do drink it, just stop your consumption at least by noon. I've had patients, drink it in the morning, drink it with lunch, drink it as a mid-afternoon pick-me-up, drink it with, as an after-dinner snack. And what this does is this perpetuates a cycle of fatigue, because coffee actually has a half-life of 5 hours, meaning that after 5 hours, half of it is out of your system, meaning that after 10 hours, 25% of it is still in your system. So this can definitely affect our sleep. And it creates this cycle of needing more caffeine because you don't feel awake, and then not sleeping well because caffeine's in your system. And it's just like this vicious cycle that is very hard to get out of. So if you're somebody who has it at all hours of the day, really try and cut back. Just be cognizant of when you do cut back that sometimes it can cause some headaches, because we do get physically addicted to it. So you could even taper with some green tea at first, just to give yourself that tapering, so you don't have any like withdrawal physical effects, and then try and work yourself back to no caffeine after noon at the very latest.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So just even in terms of like coffee versus espresso versus, matcha latte, or like something that's like more green tea based, or even black tea, what would you recommend? Just everything off the table after 12?
Yeah. Ideally.
Yeah.
Unless you need it for tapering. But yeah, everything that has caffeine, I mean, including pop
and like chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A little more chocolate. But yeah.
We'll make an exception.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. And that's a good point too. Pop has caffeine in it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, not for me because I don't drink pop, but for other people, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah. People do drink it. So really watching that caffeine intake. And once you start to do all these things, like sometimes people think like, how am I supposed to go to bed at 10 p.m.? Like there's no way I'm tired. But once you start to do all these things, like you're going to have a hard time staying up until 10 p.m. Like it really is so effective. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. What can we talk about? Maybe we'll leave, I mean, you kind of already spoke to like screens and that kind of thing. And I know you have your blue light blockers on right now. Do you want to keep that till the end, and then we'll just talk about
it? I mean, I'll say one more thing in terms of like something to do during the daytime.
Yeah.
Would just be to watch your eating window. So, arguably when we eat is more important than what we eat to some extent. So making sure that you are not eating too late. Digestion is a very yang process, meaning the daytime process. And it actually does release cortisol too when we eat. So you really want to make sure that you're not eating too close to bedtime. I'd say a general rule of thumb would be within 3 hours, not eating too close to bedtime, but it's going to change with the season. So you get to choose that. I know the sun is setting really early and it's just not feasible for some people. So don't get too worked up about it, but just trying to eat earlier, especially in the winter months.
Okay, good to know for anybody out there who's intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah. So we'll talk about artificial light.
Yeah,
what you
please.
just asked. So yeah, well, this will move into like some nighttime tips. I'd love to hear from you guys too. Just like, what do you do the last 1 to 3 hours before bed? Sometimes people are on the computer, watching a movie. Sometimes people work really late. That's the time where people say that they're most efficient, or like they get the best work done. I'd love to hear from you guys where you guys are at with all that. Because sometimes I say these things and it just doesn't hit, because, it depends on who I'm talking to. And it's like, this is so not my lifestyle. How am I supposed to flip it upside down? So I'd love to see like where you guys are at with that. But avoiding artificial light at night is one of the best things that you can do too for your health. I mean, I keep saying that, but there's so many great things for your health. But blue light just devastates sleep quality, because the sun actually does have blue light in it. And the blue light tells our body that it's daytime, that the sun is up. And so when the sun goes down and we flick on all the lights in our house, turn on all the screens, it's daytime inside of the house, right? So as a society, I think that we're like quite deficient in darkness and that yin time. And we actually get to control like when is day, when is night within our own environment, which is a lot of power to have if you don't actually understand the repercussions of this.
That's a really good point. We don't give ourselves enough darkness.
Yeah.
I really like that. And I mean, outside of sleep, we can talk about that a lot. Both you and I could get really into that, just, in the energy medicine perspective of, really diving deep within and
absolutely,
and not distracting ourselves, with the things that we have to do, which we would consider more yang activities.
Yeah. And I think that's why as a society, we're so go. Like we haven't really been taught to face the darkness even within ourselves, and it's very uncomfortable. And we're like, it's ingrained that, I'll just give a story of one of my patients, a pediatric patient. He's 12 and he's like, can you prescribe pain meds? And I was like, why? Like, what do you need them for? And he's like, when I work out, I would love to like not feel the pain. And I was just so taken aback. I was like, like the pain is good. I was trying to teach him about resilience, but then I looked at like how some kids are raised, and if it's too hot, you turn on the air conditioning. If it's too cold, you turn on the heater. Like there's never any, or very rarely are we uncomfortable. And this translates to like our mental resilience as well. So it's a huge, it's no one's fault. It's just like, it is society these days.
Right. Wow. And yeah, we kind of forget that pain comes up because it's another language, we have to really be open to the signals and signs, and that's really one way.
Yeah Absolutely. And remembering to seek help too, like when you do experience those things. I mean, oftentimes we distract, and it's often even subconscious. So we don't even know that we're doing it, but it is a protection mechanism that we are putting on ourselves to step away from the discomfort and the heavy feelings. So it's okay to seek help. To sometimes the feelings are so heavy, it's hard to face alone. So really finding somebody to help you work through those emotions and find some coping mechanisms as well.
Yeah, I hear you there for sure. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. And so, we talk about sleep hygiene a lot in the naturopathic world. And for folks who maybe haven't heard of sleep hygiene, do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah. So sleep hygiene is basically like the things that you do around sleep that can optimize your sleep. It's just like the hygiene of the routine around sleep. So there's a really important to, develop an evening routine. This would be one of like the sleep hygiene things, is to really create this consistency. And it's so advantageous for sleep quality. It's kind of like the Pavlovian response where, he did an experiment where he rang a bell and gave food, and the dogs would come and eat. And they had this association with the bell that they would start to salivate knowing that the food was coming. And then even if he rang the bell with no food, they would still salivate. And it's the same thing for us. If we develop this evening routine, even just 15 to 30 minutes before bed, you know, just like a consistent, like put on your bedtime clothes, brush your teeth, do some prayer, journaling, or gratefulness, some deep breathing in bed, and then, you know, lay your head on the pillow. It's just, you know, nothing of those individually have this huge power over sleep. But when you do them in a sequence consistently over time, your body knows, it has this neural association that sleep is coming.
Yes, I love that. You know, there has been some people writing, I like to read, I like to stretch before bed, even sometimes watch a movie, play a game on their iPad with reduced blue light. That's kind of nice, you know, at least reducing the light. Yeah,
good. That's fantastic. I think there's so going back to artificial blue light, that's actually part of sleep hygiene as well. So there are, you know, if you are playing on your iPad or iPhone, and that's just not something you could step away from, there are filters that you could put on your phone. So there's night shift around twilight, I think, on Androids. But there's also a more intense setting. I actually have a video of how to do it on my NaturoAcademy Instagram. So we can check that out afterwards, or if anybody wants, I can try and find a link quick. But yeah, so you can, and then on the computer as well, there's a free app called Flux. It's called f.lux. And there's a paid app. I think it's $14 for annual subscription, or sorry, year or lifetime. And it's called Iris. And Iris actually creates more of a red tint. And it also decreases the flicker. The flicker is like how fast the light turns on and off to create the screen that we're seeing, which is very stimulating to our body when it's flickering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's great, Roberta. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So in terms of, you know, we're talking about devices and screens and stuff, is there, you know, I guess, validity to EMFs, which is electromagnetic frequencies? Can we discuss that in terms of how that might impact sleep?
Yes, of course. So EMFs, for those who don't know, are electromagnetic frequencies, and they are emitted by, anything that connects to a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth signal. So our computer, our phone, any Bluetooth devices that you have, like a Google Home or something like that. Some of the smart TVs have this Bluetooth feature as well. And then anything electronic as well, anything that plugs into the wall, and even the outlets on the wall let off EMFs. And yeah, obviously the microwave, radio, like there's so many. So what these do to disrupt your sleep is, so if you think of it like a microwave has very strong EMF. So if you put like a piece of meat in the microwave, it basically vibrates the cells at a frequency that it eventually releases heat. And when you put your phone next to your, you know, anytime during the day or at night, but especially at night because that's our yin time, it actually vibrates our cells at a level that is very stimulating for our body. So it's really hard to be able to wind down when you have something that's stimulating, especially right beside you. You know, I remember I actually used to sleep with my phone under my pillow in high school. But you know, it's like now there's no phone, no EMFs in the bedroom at all. And nothing that emits a light either. It's very, very important that, you know, you create this sleep sanctuary, that your bedroom is only, this is where I get a good sleep. There's an association. This is not where I stay up for hours and watch a movie. It's not where, you know, like I do this or that. You know, this is where I sleep. It's really, really important to have that neural association in the bedroom. But yeah, EMFs are huge. So some of the things that you could do, obviously taking those devices out of the bedroom. You can also hit the panel.
Wait, airplane mode?
Yes, airplane mode for sure. But I was talking about electricity, the panel that you turn things on and off.
Oh, yeah.
But
panel box.
Yeah. So we know which one is for our bedroom. So we'll flip that off when we go to bed, and none of the plugs work, but there's no EMFs coming into our bedroom. Turn off the Wi-Fi. We have one of those like light timers that, you know, you like as the sun goes down, the light turns on automatically based on the timer. We just plug our, thank you, Andrew, a breaker. We just plug our Wi-Fi router right into that, so it automatically turns off. At I believe we have ours turned off at 11 and turns back on at 6.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, those are some really good tips. And for everyone out there who maybe can't flick a breaker that easily or do that, it really just helps. What I started doing was just plugging my phone in like the far corner of my room or somewhere like just outside, and putting my alarm on so that I actually have to like wake up and get out of bed.
Yeah.
And that actually helps me as well. Just get out of my bed and wake up in the morning, for everyone who likes to hit that snooze button, because that's definitely something that a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's me too. I love to hit snooze. But yeah, that's a good tip. I mean, honestly, with any of these, just do the best you can. If this isn't something that you can do, like I have a patient whose son is not, or plays video games in the middle of the night or poker or something, and they can't turn off the Wi-Fi router. And she's like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm like, it's okay. That's one of the things that you don't do. You meet yourself where you're at and figure out what is feasible for you and what isn't. And just practice some self-compassion that we're not going to be able to do it all. And that's okay.
And that's okay. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we missed that you wanted to bring up? I know we wanted to maybe talk about blue light a little bit more.
Yeah, let's talk about blue light a little bit more. I have some, sometimes when people say here, avoid all artificial light at night, it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? So I just wrote down some things that like, if it resonates with you, then you can start to do those things as well. I mean, number one would be to get the whole family on board, if possible. It's very hard to live in when you're trying to live by these principles and somebody's always flicking on a light or not quite on board. So there will be a replay of this if you want to send this to your significant other afterwards. But yeah, it's important to get your whole family on board so that everybody can be in this together. So you can use candles, just dim your lights, or use incandescent bulbs. Incandescent bulbs give off less blue light than LED. So oftentimes people think blue light is literally blue. It's actually like the strong white light. That is blue light. And just turning on half of the amount of the lights than you normally do, it goes a long way. And obviously less is more. Even if you just use side lamps instead of having them beaming over you, instead of those like overhead lights, that's helpful. And then what we like to do is just, we'll do some foam rolling or stretching on the ground. We'll do some journaling or meditating. You can have a bath with some magnesium in it. Just helps with relaxation. You could read a book. We use salt lamps. It's also being asked about salt lamps. I can answer that now quickly. Is there benefit from a salt lamp? Yes, there is. I actually don't really know, like in terms of, they say that it gives off positive ions and whatever. I just love my salt lamp. It gives off a beautiful red hue, which is so good for me at night. And I'm able to sleep near it personally, read near it. If you need more light, then just turn on a little side lamp and that's fine. But yeah, salt lamps are really great, especially in the evening time, just because of that beautiful red hue. Yeah, audiobook is good too. So you're not, having lights on or even a podcast, as long as it's not too stimulating, doesn't get you all fired up. And yeah, whatever you need to do to get your body relaxed. I think relaxation at night is one of the most simple and overlooked things that you can do for your sleep. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I know I have to relax, it's like so easy, but do you actually do it? It's so important. Sometimes people just go from, work, go to sleep. Why can't I sleep? It's just one of those things that you need to give yourself time to step away from that yang, those stimulating activities, and be able to step into your yin.
Yeah. And a lot of that takes, a little bit of effort, just like in the morning when we make a extra effort to go through the drive-through or grab the coffee that we need or whatever to wake us up. Same thing on the other end, right?
Yeah.
It's not so natural to go right to bed just after having like a really stimulating day. So I appreciate that you said that.
Yeah. It's like so simple and so overlooked. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's obviously blue light blocking glasses. So when all this isn't possible, that's when you reach for these. Like these aren't the first line, but oftentimes it is something that's very, very good to have, because there are movie nights, like we still have movie nights once a week, and we're able to put on our glasses and block that blue light coming off of that screen, so we can still have a good sleep later. So these are actually my computer glasses. So these ones block about 60%. And then when it's movie night time, the red ones come on, and these ones block 100%. So we're going to start to sell these. We use a very advanced technology that is actually pigment infused light lenses. It's not just a cheap like plastic film over top, like some of the Amazon ones. They're like $20. They're completely see-through. If you block about 1% of blue light, you're able to call yourself a blue light blocking glasses, which is just bizarre to me. These ones block 100%. It's like the difference is night and day. But yeah, so we haven't launched these glasses yet. We're hoping to by the end of this month. But we'll send a link like on here afterwards, and you can sign up for our email list. And then you guys can be the first to know when these glasses hit the market. So
that's amazing. Yes. And yeah, for everyone wondering how to contact Dr. Marissa, I did put your Instagram there.
Great.
And in the replay that I'm going to be sending out, which everyone here will get tomorrow, and everybody who couldn't make it will get tomorrow, that there's what Dr. Marissa calls the 8 pillars that she teaches all of her patients. So that's kind of like a little free handout that she's giving you guys. Mm-hmm. Plus, you'll be able to contact her and get on the email list.
Yeah. Very exciting. We send out some good stuff.
Amazing. Yeah. And I've been following it. I love it. So far, so good.
Thanks. Yeah, the other 2 things that I think we haven't talked about is, having your bedroom as a very dark environment. As we've mentioned, any light that comes in reduces your melatonin release. And there are even, as we said, light receptors on the skin. So you really do want your environment, even though your eyes are closed, you want the entire environment to be dark and cold. So again, mimicking nature, as the sun goes down, it's colder out. So you really want to be able to decrease the temperature in your house, and ideally between 16 to 20 degrees Celsius. So yeah, and then as we start to wake up in the morning, then our body temperature slowly rises. Okay,
so dark and cold. Got it.
Dark and cold.
To me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. There was something else I wanted to say, but it's gone. So maybe it'll come back.
No worries. We're literally right on schedule. So usually the last 10 minutes, Dr. Marissa, I just kind of open up the floor to questions. For folks, if they want to ask anything. I know there's been a few questions so far.
Yeah,
so we can
let's scroll down.
And then please, anybody listening right now, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll see them as you put them in and we'll get to them. So how about we start with Rachel has a question. She was asking, are there different sleep study findings from Canada versus America?
Yeah, great question. So the study that I quoted with the heart attacks increasing by 24% was from a 2014 study in the Journal of Open Heart. It was a sleep deprivation study. And I want to say it was globally, but I can't remember now. But it was probably not Canadian. It was most likely American. But that's a really good question. I wonder if there are differences. And I would love to know too, looking at now, if because we just had a fall backwards, we gained an hour, if there's a reduction, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that is neat. And something also to note, it depends on your latitude, right? Mm-hmm. I know most folks here are tuning in around, the GTA area, and that's pretty south in terms of what Canada is, but pretty north in terms of what America is. So. Yeah. And they're for a lot farther up you can go. And it depends on how much you're traveling as well, back and forth to those areas. And, I grew up in Newfoundland. So although I didn't notice it, it was actually like a lot higher latitude than a lot of other parts of Canada. So when I moved here to Toronto, it was already a change just in general from seeing more sun and, getting that sun exposure versus cloud exposure and fog exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. The sun plays a huge role in our health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. Okay, Rachel, if we didn't answer that question adequately, just write again in the comments there. So Angela had a question as well, and I'll read it out here. I never understand losing an hour of sleep if you can get the optimal 8 hours of sleep.
So that's a good question, Angela. Yeah, what it comes down to is the circadian rhythm. So we have an internal clock. So when you shift that clock, it's kind of like jet lag. It's when you shift that clock, our body feels it. Even though we still got the technical 8 hours of sleep, it's the shifting of our body's recognized time to sleep. So even like, you know, that 10 to 2 that I was talking about is no longer, our body knows it's 10 to 2. And then now that we shifted it from, you know, 11 to 3, our body can feel that difference, even though we're like, what's the big deal? It's right. That shift in our internal clock. And it takes a while for our body to really come back on track with our new time. So that's when watching the sunrise and turning off all your lights at night and avoiding artificial light at night helps your body to re-regulate its circadian rhythm. And that's really what it comes down to. And I often get questions, you know, okay, so melatonin is very important for my health. Should I be taking melatonin as a supplement? And my answer is actually no, unless there is something like a time change or you're jet lagged, or maybe your sleep has been off for the last few days and you just need to get back on track. That's really the only time I think that you should really be relying on an external melatonin supplement. But that is the time where you can find some benefit maybe this coming spring forward.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you there. So it speaks to almost, you know, we can understand something rationally, but our body still kind of dictates what's going on. Yeah. Our body and nature, like they're the boss. Yeah, they are the boss. Yeah. Taylor had a question. Taylor, how off balance are our yin and yang are, and how we contribute to it by working overdrive 24/7. That might be more of a comment, but yeah, totally. Yeah, honestly, it's yeah. So when you look at the yin and yang symbol, they're like evenly put in. I even heard somebody say recently, like, you know how you get your screen report check this week, you went up by 33% of your screen time. I don't know if you get those, but you know, you get a report each week that says how many hours of screen time that you use. So somebody said this week, take that number and meditate that same amount of number, because that's all yang activity. So now you have to do your yin activity, and we don't do it. We have a huge imbalance in yin and yang is so predominant in today's society, and it's the expectation, unfortunately, that you are very young. You know, you hear about the hustle, you know, sleep is for the dead or whatever, and it's just such bad advice. You know, when you start to synchronize with nature and you get that proper balance of yin and yang, and again, that balance is going to change based on the season. Like right now, it is more yin, or the yin and yang are a little bit more balanced, but in the summer, it's okay to be a lot more yang. We have to follow the sun. In that way, there is a lot more yang in the summer. That's why we often just feel our best. We feel so outward in the summer. It's the time to socialize. And in the winter, this is where we are supposed to turn inward. And when we don't listen to that, or we fall off balance of that, that's where a lot of misalignment happens, and you just don't feel good. You know, you just don't feel like your best, and you're like, what's wrong? You know, or maybe I have people saying like, I'm so tired. What, like, as we go into winter, I get more tired. What's wrong with me? What can I take to have more energy? And it really comes down to stepping back and saying, it's okay to be tired in the winter, because we're supposed to be. We're supposed to slow down in the winter, but our society expects us to be go, go, go. You know, especially if you're in school. And I saw that you had a question about studying, or you mentioned studying in the evening. There's this expectation that you are studying all the time. Like me and Aaron get that. We went to school and we studied a lot. And you need to be able to decipher, you know, is this studying into the late hours worth it for my sleep? Because remember what I said, you know, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice plus sleep makes perfect. So you really need to be able to consolidate those memories, everything you've been studying, Taylor, so that you're able to sleep and then move into the next day and crush that exam, or you know, do really well in your lab or whatever is coming. Really good advice. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for that. I'm just let that sink in for a second. Lindsay had a great question, and we're going to elaborate more on that, Lindsay. But please do tell us if you had any more specific question about sleep shift work, because that's something that comes up very often. So, you know, what can we say about shift work and sleep? And I know you mentioned melatonin supplementation and all of that. How can we work it into someone who does shift work? Yeah, that's hard, because shift work is a total flip-flop of our circadian rhythm. Mhm.
So we see, that it's really isn't great for our health to be working shift work. But having said that, there are some occupations that require shift work, and that's where you have to adapt to what is given to you. So I think for you, Lindsay, potentially these blue light blocking glasses would be really good to at least allow your body to produce melatonin when it needs to, unless it makes you sleepy. So what you could do is nearing the end, and you need to be alert, for instance, like a police or firefighter. So at the end of your shift, you can throw these on so you can start to produce the melatonin you need. And so that when you get home, you can start to have actually a good sleep.
Mm.
Yeah. But it's a tough one. Shift work. Yeah. It's totally off kilter than what our biology is, supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And I don't know. I mean, some people go like a long time chronically doing shift work, sometimes their whole life, their career is shift work. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they do it, honestly. Kudos. I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's a tough one. And like I said, sometimes it's essential. So you just have to do what you have to do and figure out what works for you, but just really being cognizant of your circadian rhythm. And on the days where you're not working, then being able to try and shifting back into like the natural rhythms. And really feeling into that.
That's awesome. Great. So
yeah,
Lindsay, I quit my job. I wish for you. Just do what you can. Definitely reach
work
out to
yourself
Dr.
up the ladder. And try and get some day shifts.
That too. So Angela has another question, and it seems that we're nearing the end of the questions. So this might be maybe the last one, unless somebody can pop one in there now. But let's go ahead with Angela's question, then we'll kind of conclude.
Okay. Do you include the sleep while watching TV in your total hours of sleep? Well, so when you are exposed to total darkness, that's when your melatonin can start to release. So after you reach total darkness in your environment, your melatonin can reach its peak 3 hours after that. Okay. So if you are exposed to light all the way up till you go to sleep, this actually basically you don't release enough melatonin to really get you into that deep sleep. 3 hours afterwards, you really do lose out on a chunk there. Plus that peak is actually lower than it would have been if you took some screen-free time. Mm. So that's a hard one. I wouldn't, you'd still classify it in your total hours of sleep potentially, but you wouldn't necessarily classify it into your quality of sleep. Now, I know a lot of people, I have a couple of patients who put their TV on a timer and then it goes off naturally after they fall asleep. So that would actually be like, when it turns off, that's actually when your melatonin would start to be released. But I know a lot of people do watch TV because they have mind chatter. It's like a distraction in order to fall asleep. So maybe we can talk about that if that resonates with you, Angela. So a really great technique would be journaling and allowing, sometimes we have a lot of thoughts and they're all floating up here and you're able to actually just put those thoughts on paper. It's really, really helpful for a lot of people to be able to journal and just get those thoughts out. If look at what you're thinking about, look at what your mental chatter is about. And if it's about, planning for the future, planning for the next day, or, try and get those thoughts on paper. If it's about ruminating about specific thoughts, then really try and find somebody to talk to about those thoughts so that you experience less self-shame and doubt, and more compassion. This will be very specific for each person, but I hope that helps. Another thing that you can do is try and find moments of silence throughout the day, as I mentioned, so you can allow your body to, sometimes at night is the first time when we're really alone with our thoughts and they can become very overwhelming. So allowing yourself to have those moments of, during the day of yin time to allow those thoughts to come up. And another thing is emotional freedom technique is really great. I know you had Dr. Suki on here, right, to talk about that. So there's a good episode on that. I also have a video on NaturoAcademy doing the emotional freedom technique is tapping throughout the body. And that could be a really good way to reduce the mental chatter as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's a lot of amazing modalities out there. For folks, yeah, there is. We have a whole vault of our videos past. If anyone's interested, and I'll talk to you more about that later. But we do have one more question, so I would like maybe to finish with that one, and then we can end.
Okay.
So
good question, Sally.
Yeah, what should we do if we wake up in the night and can't fall back asleep? Should you just get up?
Yeah, so it depends on the amount of time and how stimulated you are when you wake up in the middle of the night. So if you wake in the middle of the night and just, toss and turn and go back to sleep, then that's totally fine. You can do that. But if you find that you're waking in the middle of the night, kind of ready for your day, get up. And you don't have to start your day, but definitely don't turn on any lights. You can move to a different room. The last thing you want is that mental association with your bed of, tossing and turning. So you can get up. Go into another, if you have another bedroom in your house that you can go sit in, or you can go, to a living room or whatever, and just gently read a book until you feel sleepy enough to get back to sleep, to get back to bed. And then that's when you go back to bed. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get up and go for your day. It just means that you might just need to go separate yourself from your bed for a little bit and just do a yin activity, like I mentioned, and then you can get yourself back to bed. Deep breathing is really great too. If you do find that you're going back to bed and you still can't quite get back to sleep, doing some deep breathing exercises, some big belly breaths, and learning some mindfulness or meditation would be really good too, to just shift yourself back to sleep.
Yeah, that's a topic really near and dear to my heart. Just even speaking from the stages of sleep. There's some really great mindfulness techniques that you can use. And like you said, people go the whole day not hearing themselves speak, not hearing their inner chatter, not hearing their body's messages, not even knowing that they're thirsty or hungry or what they need until the end of the night, when they're finally just kind of tucking themselves in. And that can be really overwhelming at the beginning. So it's really, really important, to have some way, even if it's just taking one big deep breath before you eat dinner.
Yes.
That's a huge one. And then one big deep breath again before you get up from the table, because people tend to like gobble, 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 eat it all up, put their fork down, immediately get up and just go while they're still chewing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just relax.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, Erin.
Nobody dictates your time.
Erin has a fantastic book on mindfulness too. So if you need some help or direction in that area, it's great. It's called A Drink Called Mindfulness. Yeah, fantastic.
Thanks, Dr. Marissa. Yeah, and like I said, that's available on Amazon. And I know someone just wrote, I read your book. Thanks, Erin, for that. That's really, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And
cool.
The holiday season's coming up as well. So if you want to gift it to yourself or gift it to anyone else in your family that needs a little bit of mindfulness, and it's super easy, super basic techniques that you can incorporate within 5 minutes a day. So thanks for that.
Yeah, of course.
And to everyone here that tuned in tonight, I'm so, so glad you came, and I'm so glad that you were so engaged. This has been amazing. We had over 30 people register. Thank you so much, Dr. Marissa, again, for coming. Lots to think about. Yeah, Rachel, lots to reconsider and restructure your life. Any last words from you, Dr. Marissa? Yeah,
no, I just urge people to really sit down after this and write down your 3 takeaways or your 3 things that you're going to really get started with. Ideally right now. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It's only, in Canada, Rachel, it's 7 o'clock. I don't know where it is, what it is where you are right now, but it's 7 o'clock. So it's okay to start now. Just start now. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Just start now. Okay. That's about it.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who are looking at the comments as well, I did just put Dr. Marissa's little healthier everyday PDF that she's giving you guys. So just go ahead, grab that link. But if you don't worry. We will actually be emailing it out tomorrow as well with the whole replay of this if you want to rewatch any part or rewatch the whole thing with your partner.
Yeah, get everyone involved.
Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. We do this every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. It's the Inspiring Insights webinar series. And if you want to hear more from me, I'm at the Erin Edwards on Instagram. And Dr. Marissa is
Dr. Canning.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everybody, and
Thank
have
you,
a lovely
everybody.
evening.
Bye.